from Saturday, January the 21st, 2012. The Minister admits the new tax is unjust. Yes, household charge is unfair. Now, we have another cutting here. And it goes to show Gilmore playing with his balls, if you don't mind, at a snooker table. And Gilmore backs the TDs who failed to attend special Dáil sessions. One of the speakers there tonight said that Paul Keogh and the other officer in Wexford wouldn't attend meetings. Why would they not attend the meetings? I'll tell you why they wouldn't attend the meetings. They wouldn't attend the meetings because they haven't got the guts. They haven't the guts to attend the meetings. That's why they haven't attended the meetings. And another thing too, this household tax. While everyone will agree it's a tax, I'll tell you what it's a tax for. It's a tax for to give Paul Keogh 17,000 of a bonus. It's a tax for to give Mick Darcy and Anna €1,250 a week. And I have to live on less than 400. Now where's the fair play in that, I ask you? And these are the same gurriers that would. Where are they tonight at this meeting? Where's any of them at the meeting? The reason they're not here, they haven't got the guts to come to the meeting. Another cutting there I have on the paper where Andy Kenny, are supposed to be our tea shop, goes down to Cork to patronise two or three politicians that were returning. And he hadn't the guts to face the people. But it says here that in one piece it says here that where he slipped into the back door. He wouldn't go into the main door. Because I tell you he went slipped into the back door. Again, he hadn't the guts to face the people. And this government was elected by the people, for the people. But every department in it, they've all issued, there's not one apartment that didn't do a U-turn. They've all done U-turns. And now this is why they're trying to bring in all these taxes and everyone will agree they're a tax. I know they're a tax, but tax to give the bonuses out to the politicians that they're not worth. There's not a politician in Dáil Éireann fit to run the country, and that's what's wrong. There's none of them in Dáil Éireann. They haven't a clue how to run the country, because if they had, they wouldn't be closing up the barracks and people living in fear every night. So. You can take what you like from that now, that's all I have to say.
A month before the election, when they're canvassing your vote, but they're actually afraid to turn up at the moment to face the consequences. And as Johnny says here, as well at funerals, and as I think as a famous local politician, Larkin Allen said to a young Fianna Fáil meeting, it's funerals that win elections for us. Do you know, I think that sums up the mentality. But you won't see them at meetings like this. So if anyone else has any other points they'd like to make.
Just come in on a couple of them there.
Okay, John.
Yeah. Just come in on a couple of them there, a couple of points. This gentleman is dead right, you know, I mean, there's so many U-turns carried out by this government. I mean, prior to the elections, we were told that things would be totally different. From the Labour Party, a party that always put out that they were opposed to household taxes, opposed to water charges, opposed to the selling off of, you know, the family silver, which is our assets, such as Quilcha, the ESB, etc. And you see all the U-turns there. You see what's going on within Fine Gael as well. And maybe, you know, some would say, sure, Jesus, the IMF at the end of the day are the ones running the country. Angela Merkel and Sarkozy, they're pulling the strings of the government. And certainly when Fianna Fáil handed over our sovereignty, financial sovereignty, to Europe, you know, I think that was a a sad, sad day for us here, and we're seeing the repercussions of that. I mean, the household charge, you're dead right again, and this man down the back here is dead right. It's an unfair, unjust tax. As I said earlier, it's the thin end of the wedge. And I know as a county councillor, and this is the line Phil Hogan and the government are peddling, and if anyone was fortunate or unfortunate enough to get some of the government propaganda that was supposed to go through every household in the state, you know, it has all the fancy photographs of parks and playgrounds and other, you know, services and facilities in communities that, you know, they're alleging that this money will go towards funding. But as a county councillor, I know not one red cent of that will go back into local communities, because already they've cut the local government fund. This is the money that the government gives to local councils, town councils, county councils, to fund services. They've already slashed that, and they're saying they're going to continue slashing that, and they're hoping that the household charge is going to bring in 160 million, and they're saying that will go in to fill the vacuum of the funding that they've stripped away from local authorities. And at this point, it's quite obvious for anyone to see that people are not going to pay the household stealth tax, and rightfully so, in my mind. People have paid enough, people can't pay anymore, and for government ministers to turn around and tell someone, sure, it's only €2 a week. Well, that's all right. €2 a week is all right for someone who's bringing home in excess of €100,000 a year. But for a young family in negative equity, with a massive mortgage around their neck and all the other bills coming in through the door, and, you know, people weighing up the options there, whether to pay the ESB, to have it cut off, to keep it going, or to pay another stealth tax. I, for one, know what option I'd take. I'd pay to put food and the bread on the table for my family. And that's the option that many people are taking, and rightfully so too. But the grim fact here is the deficit, the €160 million that they had hoped to go into local authorities. This is not going to happen. So they're in a massive dilemma now, that we're going to see councils throughout the state massively underfunded. Absolutely, Johnny. There's going to be a massive deficit there to local councils, and that's a major problem that they're going to have to deal with. And I suppose some people would say, well, geez, you wouldn't mind paying the €100 if you were actually getting something back from your local council, if you were getting your refuse collected. But we know that's not the case. I mean, that's being privatised and handed over to some of their own friends and cronies. Or maybe if you were getting, like over in England or whatever, if you had an emergency and you had to call out the fire brigade, that, you know, the cost of that would be covered. But oh no, this is, you know, this is the 26 counties here we're dealing with. You get a bill in the post, as, you know, a situation there in Wicklow. A distressed family rang me up, a house fire in Bray last year. One person left in a serious condition, still in hospital, on life support machine, touch and go as to whether that poor girl will actually come through or not. And the county council sent out a bill to the girl who was lying up in hospital, demanding €1,100, or else she'll end up in prison or face serious legal consequences. But no, this is the, you know, it is what it says it is. It's a stealth tax. You're not going to get any of those services. You'll still have to continue to pay for your refuse. You're going to have to pay for your water if they have their way by 2014. Already we know they're in the process of signing the contracts to install the water meters throughout the state. And I suppose in an area like this, most people probably wouldn't be on mains waters, or probably on group water schemes, or on their own wells or whatever. But, you know, people are still going to have to pay for all of these services, and yet they're expected to pay this stealth tax, the household charge. But I certainly was not trying to scaremonger anyone when I, gave the example there of, families possibly in the future being hit by councils, because councils, the government are now saying it's going to be councils who are going to have to police this, and they're going to have to take legal action against people for non-payment or non-registration. And Wicklow, myself and my party colleague John Snell have tabled a motion which is hopefully going to be dealt with at an April County Council meeting, demanding that the county manager do not take legal action against any individual or family for non-compliance or non-payment of the household charge, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to take, probably get the register of electors, go through it and pick out a few people, maybe a couple of high-profile people, and try and make an example of them. And the example I gave about, families being victimised by not getting VEC grants, that's not fiction. That's based on fact. And I don't want to scaremonger or frighten people, but people have to know the possible consequences, because that was a case in Wicklow during the anti-water charges campaign back in the 80s, where the county council in Wicklow actually disqualified a young family from getting VEC grants because they had refused to pay their water charges in a campaign that Sinn Féin was involved in. But no one's to say that's going to happen in this case, and hopefully it doesn't. But people need to know the possible consequences. There's no point in a year's time people coming out and saying, "Geez, I never thought that could happen." People need to be informed, of the consequences and make up their minds one way or another. And I wouldn't hold it against any person for deciding amongst them, within their own family to pay it. I certainly wouldn't hold it against them. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to dictate to anyone. But anyone that does refuse to pay it, I personally think they're doing the right thing, because it is an unfair, unjust tax, and not one penny will go back into providing any services within the communities. It's going to go into the toxic banks that we discussed. It's going to go into the pockets of the bond holders who purchased these bonds on the secondary market. Not even, the people who initially bought these bonds from banks and that. These are people who picked up these bonds second hand from someone who offloaded them, knowing they were going to be worthless or potentially worthless, and people took a gamble. It'd be like someone going in and buying a lottery ticket and scratching out half of it and thinking, geez, narrowing the odds down and then selling it on to someone else, and them scratching it and finding sure they've lost, and then them going back to the shop. Not even the poor person who bought the lottery ticket in the first place, the person who ended up with it second hand, going back into the shop and getting a full refund plus interest on top of that, a nice handshake, and off you go. So that's where your money's going from the household charge. That's where your money's going to go from the septic tank charges. That's where your money's going when all the other cuts are imposed, whether it's the rural transport schemes, whether it's the school transport schemes, when they close down Garda stations, when they remove teachers from rural schools. That's where it's going. It's going into the pockets of these people. Now, if you ask me, that is totally, totally wrong. And, I would fully support anyone who decides to take a principled stand against all of that and to withhold their charge on that. And also possibly withhold their charge on the septic tank. Now, they're saying it's a £5 initially for a 3-month period, then they're going to push it up to €50 for registration. But again, we know the way this government operates. When they introduce the PRSI, when they introduce all the other taxes and that over the years as temporary measures, it's become part of a fabric of society now. Once it's in the door, it's there and there for good. And it only ever goes in one direction. So.
Thanks, John. Anthony, want to invite this man's reading?
I just like to say I fully agree with what this gentleman has been saying about the government having the guts to face most of the public. It proved only recently, as yesterday, when Spain were able to renegotiate reconstruction of their austerity treaties or bills. They could get a restructuring of the fund, an extension on their payments. Our government haven't got the guts or the gumption to go over and bang the table against those IMF to get a deal for Ireland, a proper deal for Ireland. Greece has got it, Spain has got it. Why haven't we got it? Because the government haven't the guts, the negotiators that are going over haven't the guts to fight for Ireland. I just raised the issue earlier on about the young mother who's had the electric cut off, all because of the arrears she paid and could not enter into an agreement of €55 per week. She hasn't got it. It's like Councillor John was saying, as councillors we're on the forefront at the cold face of it, where we're in houses, where I'm looking across the table at a young family, both working, but who are the new poor of Ireland, who are saying when they put their wages on the table, are we going to get oil this month? Are we going to pay the mortgage this month? Are we going to pay the electricity this month? And that's what it's come down to. That's what austerity is. That is exactly what austerity is. And these are the people who are caught in negative equity as well. All because these foreign banks have come in and thrown money at the people of Ireland. That was the Celtic Tiger that we witnessed. The throwing of foreign money at young married couples to go out and force them to purchase houses and get caught in this negative equity. Now they're looking for payback. That's where this money is cut and sucked out of Ireland too, to pay back the German and French banks. But I think that highlight of the young woman who can't afford to pay arrears people, and the government paying over 1.3 billion at the end of this month to the foreign bondholders. How could anybody justify that? An Irish person that cannot enter into negotiation and now, from tonight, has her electricity supply cut off. She has got to cater for her 2 kids, 2 small children, without any power in that house for the next couple of months. So I leave it at that. And the reason I raise it is a prime example of what austerity is doing in this country today. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Any more points?